Founded in 1879, Fulham are one of the oldest and most historic sides in the English football leagues. They spent a lot of that time in and around the top division of English football, yet they've never won a major trophy. No Premier League, no FA Cup, no League Cup, or no European success either, but today I'm going to try and change that. That's right, following on from their good start to the season in real life, I'll be taking over as manager of Fulham Football Club with 5 years to try and take them to some kind of success. Now, they've already got a pretty big fan base, a nice stadium, and some great facilities, but it's trophies that they lack. They have won the Championship and Sky Bet League One, but outside of that, we're talking really old trophies and nothing of major success. Now, they were runners-up in the FA Cup in 1975 and famously were runners-up in the Europa League in 2010, but obviously we want to go a step further than that and win some silverware, but we're going to need some good players to do so. Thankfully, the club already has a fair few. Recent signing Emile Smith-Rowe is arguably the star man of our team, Joachim Andersen looks to be a great addition to Fulham's backline, and Bernd Leno is a very experienced goalkeeping option. So there is some good quality in this Fulham squad, arguably not enough to push anywhere high up the table just yet, but there are some players with potential that might be able to help us bridge that gap. Birmingham loanee Luke Harris has a lot of talent, but also the potential to become a Premier League player. Last season, Rodrigo Muniz proved that he could score goals at a high level. And there's also former Barcelona Academy product George Cuenca, who'll be looking to find his feet in the Prem. So obviously we're not going to win the title just yet, but there are some good talents spread throughout the team that we didn't even cover, the likes of Adama Traore, Sander Berg, Raul Jimenez, Kenny Tete, even Anthony Robinson, the American international. Now the board are looking for us to avoid a relegation fight, and that looks about right in Season 1 because we're predicted a 13th place finish, with the likes of Brentford, Everton and Crystal Palace presumed to be around a similar level, but I want to try and get ahead of them, so thankfully we do have a £20 million budget to try and make that work. So in Season 1 now, I'm going to kick off some transfers, see what we can do, improve this team a little bit ahead of the future seasons where hopefully we can start a real overhaul. And to be honest, I went into Season 1 a little bit hesitant of what I might be able to bring into the club in terms of transfers, but I feel like we've done a very good job. Firstly, I should talk about the sales though, where there's two to note. The first one is Carlos Vinicius, who isn't sold permanently, but I've loaned him out to Girona for the season, with Rodrigo Muniz up top as well as Raul Jimenez. I didn't think Vinicius would play enough, so I have loaned him out to Girona. We've got a £2 million fee for the loan, and there is an option for them to buy him. And then a deal where I feel like we've done pretty well. Kenny Tete wasn't someone that I was looking to sell, but Ajax came in for their former right back, aged 28. It's hard to reject a bid of 21 million rising to 27. He did used to play for the club, so maybe that's why they wanted him, but we have 10 times the money that Fulham originally paid for him. He wasn't probably our starting right back anymore anyway, and I feel like our incomings have made up for his loss. Because there's a new option coming in to compete with Timothy Castagne, and that is Thiago Santos, who I have bought in from Lille. He's a 22-year-old Portuguese national who I have signed for 7.5 million, rising to 8.5, formerly of Sporting Club de Portugal. He's a marauding right wing back who's going to bomb forward and hopefully create a lot of chances. Speaking of chances, we'll be hoping this man can help finish some of them off. It's Omar Marmoush, who is an option both as an inside forward on the left but also as a striker, so gives us some good cover. He's 25, very quick, and in real life there's a lot of links between him and Liverpool. We have signed him from Frankfurt, where he was after leaving Wolfsburg. We've paid £9 million for him, rising to 10, which I think for this calibre of player is a pretty good deal. But then our biggest and final signing of the window is one that I'm hoping will really bolster our midfield in the future. You saw when I showed the potential of the team, there wasn't many that had really well-beaten talent if they develop, but Lucas Guarna-Dwarf is one of them that I think could go that level because he is a 21-year-old French under-17 international. He's been playing in Austria for Salzburg, and we've spent £18.5 million to bring him in. He's a player that's good right now, but I think in the future could turn into a top player. Now, tactically, I'm running with a 4-2-3-1, but with some slightly progressed central midfielders because I thought that kind of suited the players we had pretty nicely, and I'll quickly run through what is considered our best 11. In goal, we've got Bernd Leno, who you've met, with Castagne at right back. Alongside him in the defence is Andersen and Cuenca, who I've shown already, and Anthony Robinson, the American, who is a very good option for the Premier League here. Andreas Pereira, the former Manchester United man, fills in alongside former Arsenal player Alex Iwobi, and then going forward, we've got the Welshman Harry Wilson, obviously Emile Smith-Rowe, Loney Reece Nelson coming in from Arsenal also, and then Carlos Vinicius, who we've sold, but realistically, I imagine that's going to be Raul Jimenez. Financially, we left a lot in the transfer budget. We've got a good club balance then in terms of the debts and loans. There's nothing major there also, so things are looking good in that sense. And clearly the game likes our transfers as well, because our odds of winning the title have jumped up massively to 200 to 1, so clearly not happening yet, but we're now predicted to be better than Crystal Palace, which is obviously a good thing. Predicted 12th place. We'll try and live up to that in our first season. This is where we can really get to learn the team, then after that we can make some signings, make some sales, and start to make this club our own. But let's see what they can do in season 1. Okay, the first season is complete, and normally in these videos, this is where I go and we performed way above the game's expectation of us, but we were predicted 12th place and we actually finished below that. In fact, we really struggled this season. We lost games like this one against Bournemouth 4-0. Leicester City also knocked 4 past us at the King Power, so we weren't just losing to the major clubs in the league. And we even lost 3-1 at home to Nottingham Forest, who we would have expected we could have beat. So clearly the league season wasn't going too well, but the one place where we were competing to a decent level was the FA Cup. Now, as mentioned, Fulham have never won this trophy, so when we made it to the quarter-final against Sunderland, this was our first real chance to get some silverware. In extra time, we managed to get 1 goal through Nelson, before a Wilson free kick in the 98th minute of extra time found Anderson, and the ball ended up going into the net. Which meant we had won, we were through to the semi-final, but then we came up against Liverpool, and a Premier League club put us to the sword again, and we got battered. So clearly, things aren't quite working here. And I mentioned we finished below that 12th place prediction because we finished in 14th place, Ipswich doing better than us, Everton doing better than us also, Man United pretty close actually, only 5 points away, but we were only 1 point ahead of Wolves, and whilst there was a big gap between us and the relegated teams, which included West Ham, Leicester and Southampton, it was not our best season. We lost more games than we won. Surprisingly, some of the games that we won were the games I wouldn't really have expected, so we need to try and work on that next season, win more matches and become a better team. Thankfully though, we have learned some players that we can rely upon. Our best performer across the course of the season was Lucas Guarna-Dwarf, who I asked the assistant to play as often as possible as we holidayed, and he didn't have a great year, but he has developed quite a lot. Emile Smith-Rowe chipped in with 10 goals, Reece Nelson got 10 himself, so the 2 Arsenal boys helping us to a 20 goal contribution there. We had 2 goals from newbie Thiago Santos at right back, whilst new signing Omar Marmoush managed to bag 7. But obviously that isn't really good enough, and we're going to have to improve the team, so it's a good job we have got £53 million to spend and 150 grand of wage budget. It's not going to be an instant transition here at Fulham to make us a title winning team, but hopefully with the right signings in season 2 we can get closer to that goal. And in season 2, we definitely had a productive transfer window, plenty of outgoings and incomings as well, but before I get onto them, I just want to ask you guys, as always in these videos, if you could show your support to me, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash the like button. You have no idea how much that helps promote these videos on YouTube, which of course helps me, so thank you to anyone who does that, and make sure you're subscribed as well as we close in on our 40,000 subscriber target. We're so close now, so if you are enjoying the videos, click that button for us, and that would be amazing. Don't forget to comment down below what rebuild you want to see next, and if you do want to play these save files from the rebuilds, you can find them on my Patreon, season 1 through to 5 of every single rebuild that we've done. Over there you can get access to them in return for supporting me as a creator, which really does help, goes a long distance, so thank you to anybody who's ever checked that Patreon out. But let's check out the transfers. We'll start with the outgoings, where Adama Traore's time at Fulham is up. He's moved to Al Khalij out in Saudi Arabia, 29 years of age now, didn't play much last year for us, so we got £4.6 million for him, and I think it's easy just to cut ties with him. Interestingly, Rodrigo Muniz hasn't really turned out to be the player that we wanted so far, and for that reason he was asking for more game time somewhere else, so he's been loaned out to the Brazilian leagues. Last year he played 27 times, 20 as a starter, but only scored 3 goals, so I don't feel like he's the man for us in FM. A deal that I think we can be pretty happy with is moving Harrison Reed on for a good fee, age 30. He's moved to Burnley, which could be a good move for him, for 8.5 million. Played a fair bit for us last season, Robinson, but only off the bench, so he's not a huge loss. Nor is Carlos Vinicius, who wasn't even really with us here last year. He was loaned out to Girona, where he actually did very well and made it look silly that we loaned him out, considering we had our guy only get 3 goals all season from striker. But you know what, we'll forgive it. He's moved to Brentford now, 11 million. We cut ties and make some money. We got a great deal on Harry Wilson, a player that I wasn't expecting to sell, and I definitely wasn't expecting to sell him to Saudi Arabia, where he's earning 400 grand a week after a 22 million pound move to Saudi. I mean, he was okay for us last year. I don't know why they wanted him so bad, but I am not going to stand in his way. But there was an even bigger sale than that, and it was a man that I was hoping to build around long term, the left-footed central defender Jorge Cuenca, who we have sold to Newcastle. Now, I didn't want to sell him, but he wanted to go when Newcastle came in. We have managed to get 55 million out of a deal, which I think is pretty good for a guy that last year was good, but maybe not amazing just yet. I thought he had a lot of potential, but unfortunately he's gone, but we are 55 million pounds richer. So it was time for a spending spree where we bought in quite a lot of players from the relegated clubs from last season. Up first is our new backup goalkeeper and future successor to Bernd Leno's throne. It's Mads Hermansen, Leicester City's goalkeeper, who we have signed for 10 million pounds, rising to 12. Struggled for Leicester in game last year, but he was in a poor Leicester side, so maybe with us he'll do better. I then managed to pick up Brian Zaragoza from Bayern Munich on the transfer list at the club. Now, he didn't really do too much for them, got loaned out to Osasuna, where he had a good season in La Liga, so we've paid 11.5 million for him, which I think is a great deal, to be honest, for this kind of player. Able to play both sides and replaces Traore very well. Maybe the biggest coup for us, though, is managing to sign Dominic Solanke from Tottenham. Now, this isn't a realistic signing by any stretch, but in FM, he obviously went to Spurs, as he did in real life, and he just did not really play for them. He played 10 times, only 3 as a starter, scored 6 goals, and because of that, he then wanted to leave. He was promised to be an important player. In-game, Ange Postecoglou didn't give him the opportunity, so he opted to go. He was on the transfer list, and I'm not going to reject 14.5 million for a very good forward option. He might be 28, but I've splashed a big bit of cash on Jarrod Bowen. Now, you might have saw last season that West Ham got relegated, and because of that, Bowen was available for a cut price fee of 20 million quid. Now, he wasn't amazing for West Ham last year, but they did go down, so I guess no one would have been, but 20 million I think is a good deal for a very good Premier League level player, an England international who for us can play in 3 positions and should be a great player for us. But then with Cuenca leaving, I needed a new centre-back, a left-footed one in fact, who can play with the ball at his feet, so I've gone for Maxime Esteve. Formerly of Burnley, I spent 27.5 million pounds to bring him to the club, which was a big fee, I can't lie, but the 6'4" centre-back is someone that I think in time could be worth a lot more, and I feel like he suits our profile quite well. So already I feel like this best 11 is looking totally different. I mean, Bernd Leno is still in goal with Castagna and Robinson as the fullbacks, but Bassi and Anderson is the new centre-back partnership. Supposedly that is our best, although I imagine it will look a little bit more like this as the season goes on, and potentially as well Thiago Santos in that position also. Andreas Pereira and Guana Dwarf is our best central midfield, with Bowen, Smith Rowe, Zaragoza and Solanke as, in my opinion, a huge improvement in the attack. Obviously I don't think that's good enough to win a league, but I actually think in terms of the attack alone, that's good enough for European football, but we'll see if the squad as a whole is good enough for that. In terms of the season preview, the board are now wanting a mid-table finish, and we are predicted 14th place, so clearly they feel like our transfers out have hurt us more than what we've bought in, but I feel like we can overperform that this time. I think we're a much better team than the game suggests. I mean, Burnley, Norwich and Middlesbrough should be the shoo-ins for relegation, so we should avoid that, but now it's time to go. In Season 2, this team is a little bit more of our own now, so we need to start getting results, else our job might be on the line. And after a disappointing Season 1, in Season 2, we have really kicked into gear, our transfers have worked well, and we have seen some much better performances on the pitch. One showcase of this improvement was against our London neighbours Chelsea, where Smith Rowe scored a goal after 23 minutes, and we actually dominated the game from there. Unfortunately, Chelsea did equalise in the 82nd, Caicedo finding En-Nesyri, who bagged it into the corner, but we didn't give up, and in the 93rd minute, a former Arsenal player, Emile Smith Rowe, already scoring one in this game, managed to get a second, bouncing on this ball and putting us 2-1 up. Now that was the kind of game we just weren't winning last season, but that happened on a regular basis. The games that we wouldn't have won last year, we were suddenly winning, we were racking up the points, and it led to a brilliant finish in the table. Because while it might be a little bit of a fluke, we have managed to finish in 5th place, 71 points, 22 wins, 5 draws and 11 losses. Now the cup competitions, we did go out early, so we should note that in terms of helping us in the league, but but we will be playing Europa League football next year. We were better than Tottenham, Newcastle, Man U, and plenty of other clubs as well. Still a big distance off the top 4, but that was a brilliant season for us. I couldn't have asked for too much more than that. I don't expect us to get that next year. I feel like we've had a little bit of a lucky run. In fact, Thiago Santos having the season of his life with 15 assists from wing-back was very impressive. But he wasn't the only one, because Smith Rowe got 16 goals this year, Marmoush ended up getting 11, 19 from new signing Solanke, and Pereira scoring 13. Bowen chipped in with 11 goals, and we also had Sasa Lukic getting 4 himself, Brian Zaragoza, the new signing, with 9. So overall, this was definitely a huge improvement for us. We have now secured ourselves European football next year, and because of that, our budgets have gone up massively. £74 million to spend and 170 grand of wage budget. I've been trying to improve the facilities as well, but it is taking a while. I do think though the stadium has had a capacity upgrade, so that's always great to see. But obviously we've got that big budget and we're going to have to spend it to improve this team. We're now a Europa League level side. We can't just have a first 11 that does well. We're going to need depth, and we're going to need to push further and further if we're going to try and win a trophy in this rebuild. So let's see what we can do. And once again, we have had another busy transfer window. Our huge budget was spent to a big level. We have bought nearly £100 million worth of players and sold over £30 million worth of players, with plenty of outgoings and incomings. Let's get right into it. A couple of loans out to mention first: Ryan Sessegnon to Bologna for the season, and Sasa Lukic going to Freiburg. Both of these guys have options to buy in their loans should the clubs want them. Issa Diop moved on for a nominal fee. He's gone to Damac. He only had a year left on his deal and wasn't playing much for us, so we've got him away for 475, mainly just to clear the squad up and get a big earner gone. Rodrigo Muniz went out on loan last season to Brazil and didn't do amazing there either, so clearly he's just not built for Football Manager, so he sold him to Zaragoza for 2.1 million. But we can't seem to keep hold of our left-footed centre-backs, because after losing Cuenca in season 1, Esteve wanted to leave this season. Obviously, he was doing well for us and playing well, but when Al Nassr come in Saudi and offer you 400 grand a week, he was obviously going to want to go, and go he did. Age 24, he has now moved away, and we don't even make that much money. £39 million on a fee that initially cost us 27. So yes, it is a profit, but it means we had to go into the market again to find a new defender, which was a little bit annoying. But our annoyance was soon gone with the incomings we were able to bring in, because we had a great window. First up was Benjamin Kremashi, who is a 21-year-old American international central midfielder with potential to get even better than he is, who we have signed for a small fee of 4.2 million from Inter Miami. He's been learning from Suarez, Alba, Busquets, and Lionel Messi, of course, so fingers crossed he is going to be a great player for us. Strahinja Erekovic, a Serbian 25-year-old defender, is a nice addition to our back line. Kind of comes in to replace Issa Diop's level in the team, I'd say. £7.5 million coming in from Zenit out in Russia, where he's been playing very well. The game rates him highly, as did our scout, so he'll be a good addition to the back line. The man of the moment in real life, John Duran, has joined us as a new striking option. With Rodrigo Muniz leaving, I've decided to spend 18 million, rising to 19 on the Colombian forward, who hasn't been doing much in game for Aston Villa, but there's clearly a player there, and I'm hoping we can really get the best out of him. We've improved at left back also with the signing of Quilinci Hartman, who is a Dutch 24-year-old who we have signed from Feyenoord, where he's been doing very well for consecutive seasons. £22.5 million is the fee for a good forward-thinking left back who can also defend well. We then spent 30 million quid on a Croatian midfielder who I think takes us to another level. This is Martin Batrina, signing from Dinamo Zagreb. He is a brilliant player. Yes, it is a lot of money, but I feel like he is going to be a star in the middle of the pitch. And finally, we have bought in Abakar Silla, who comes in as that left centre-back option now. The third one we've had to get, really, with Cuenca starting and then Esteve coming in. Now it's Abakar Silla. He's cost us just over 30 million from Strasbourg in France, 23 years of age, an Ivorian international and a leader, a fan favourite of the rebuilds I've done here on the channel. Somehow he always comes back every few rebuilds, but there you go, he is in, and that now completes our team for the season, and our best 11 now looks like this. We've got Bernd Leno in goal. Thiago Santos has now made that right back spot his own, with Anderson and Silla as our best centre backs, and left back it's definitely not Sessegnon, it's going to be Hartman. Guana Dwarf and Pereira is supposedly the best midfield, but I see it more as something like this, with Baturina and Guana Dwarf there, with Zaragoza, Smith Rowe, Jared Bowen doing this kind kind of thing, and I would have said it's Solanke up top. So I don't really know why the game decided that was our best 11, because in my opinion, it looks a lot more like this. I think this is the kind of team that actually could repeat a 5th place finish in the Prem. And clearly the game likes our transfers too, because we're now predicted 9th place, 100-1 title odds compared to where we were last season. That's a big improvement for us. We're obviously going to be playing European football in season 3 as well, so that's another thing to contend with. So let's see what our team can do in our 3rd season at the club. Okay, to be honest with you, this season it wasn't as good as the last year, but we were playing European football, and for the first time in this rebuild, we can say we were competing against Europe's elite. Or at least the elite in the Europa League, because of course we weren't in the Champions League just yet, but this season we did really well. In the round of 16, we knocked out Porto 6-3 on aggregate, Solanke getting a hat-trick. We did make it to the quarter-final though, where we came up against French side Rennes, who we managed to beat 7-3 across the course of 2 legs, Thiago Santos getting a goal in that one. And when we got drawn against Galatasaray in the semi-final, I thought we had a good chance, but to be honest, they absolutely wiped the park with us, scored plenty of goals, and they beat us 8-5 on aggregate, so we gave it a good go, but clearly not good enough in the European front. And that did hurt us in the Premier League, because even though it was still a great season, we finished in 6th place this year. 62 points, way less than last season, and a bigger gap between us and the title now. But in the FA Cup, we made the 5th round, the Carabao Cup knocked out in the 3rd round by Stevenage, so not a good performance in the domestic cups, but even though it's easy to focus on the negatives, we have got a European semi-final, we got 6th place in the league, which for Fulham is good, even after all the money we've spent, so I'm very happy with that. And this season, there were some clear players that we can now begin to build around, I would say, because Smith Rowe continues to be one of our best, but Zaragoza is really growing in a Fulham shirt. We've also got Pereira, Guanadouaf and Batrina, as well as Kremeshi, forming a very good young midfield. Dominic Solanke scored 18, 16 from Jarrod Bowen. The team's really sharing the load, which is good to see. We're not relying upon one singular star, but we can add even more stars to the mix now, because going into season 4, we have got £56 million to spend. So I'm going to see what I can do, see who we can bring in, sell some players on, and hopefully improve this team even more than we already have. And it has been another busy transfer window in season 4, but before I show you that, I'm just going to quickly let you know I do have a second channel now, which you can find linked in the description, where over there I'm doing some general football content away from Football Manager, currently focused on my club Chelsea, but I'm going to do some more Premier League content soon. So if you want to head on over and hit the subscribe button over there, that would be amazing. And if it interests anyone as well, just to let you know, there is a Discord in the description. I don't talk about it as much anymore, but there's over 1,000 people over there talking Football Manager, from sharing their saves to asking for advice. It's a great community, and if you haven't checked it out, I suggest you do so. But let's check out the transfers. I'm going to run through these sales pretty quickly because there's a few of them, but Sander Berger's left the club to join Cagliari out in Italy for 2.3 million, having never made an impact. Alex Iwobi has moved on. He's gone to play for Shakhtar. He's been a great servant over the last few years, playing a lot even if he wasn't always playing well, so he moves to Ukraine for 7.5 million. Ryan Sessegnon has also left permanently to join Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia. A good move for him. 6.25 million is what they paid for him. Castagna wasn't happy not being the starting right back now Thiago Santos was so good, so he's moved to join Al Fayha, again Saudi Arabia, 7.5 million, but he's been a good player for us. Sasa Lukic has also moved on permanently after his few loans that he's had whilst we've been here at the club. He has moved to Brighton for 12 million, rising to 15, so I'm very happy with that. Spent 1 year actually playing for us. The rest of it, not much at all of note, so I don't know how we've got so much money, but we have. And then our final transfer out, another centre-back that leaves not long after joining. Strahinja Radakovic was the man, 26 years of age. He wanted a bigger impact on the team. He wasn't playing as much as he would have wanted, so he's moved on, but we make double the money of what we initially paid for him, so I'll take that any day. Coming in to bolster our attacking line, we have Mohamed Diamonde, who can play centre mid or anywhere along the front really, and we have bought him in for a cheap fee of 12.5 million from Rangers, where he's been exceptional in Scotland, but let's see if he can do it in the Prem. I've bought a new gem for the future, so anyone that continues to save over on Patreon, you'll have Leonardo Luis developing here. He's an 18-year-old that I bought for 13 million and then loaned him back out to his current club, so he'll keep playing there and eventually, probably next season, make an impact in our team. We replaced Radakovic for the same money, but bought a younger player. 23-year-old Wouter Gos is the player. He was at AZ Alkmaar, where he was doing very well, so we've paid 14 million and I think got ourselves a bargain of a deal here on a very good defender. Another new gen that I think will go right to the very top, I'll back up to Thiago Santos, a new right back. He's a Belgian under 21 international, 18 years of age. He's signed for 15 million from Ghent. This is Younes El Amari, who I think is going to be a brilliant right wing back. And Bernd Leno's contract was up this year, so we brought in a new goalkeeper, Marco Cornesci. Obviously, I wanted it to be Mads Hermansen, but he has not really grown, so we have signed the Italian shot stopper to be our number one. £16 million was the fee from Atalanta, where he's done really well in Serie A, so this should be a great pick. And heading into season 4, I think we can be very happy with the team we've built, because it looks like a very strong one now. The back four is good, Cornesci's good in goal, and then the midfield and attack is of a very high level, I would say. In terms of the season preview, the board is still wanting a top half finish. We'll be playing Europa League football, but we are predicted still that 9th place finish by the game, so we should be able to exceed what the board want. But with the Europa League and the Premier League, I'm hoping with the squad we've got now, we might be able to manage it a little bit better, potentially push for a Champions League space and try and get further in the domestic cups also. But obviously, that's all up for grabs now. We need to go for it, play on the pitch, and fingers crossed we can bring home some silverware finally to Fulham Football Club. And with season 4, it's really hard to kind of distinguish our progress as a club here over the last few years, because this has been very much a mixed season. But let's start with the negatives, then we'll do a positive and then a negative. I call this a negative, but in the FA Cup we did make it all the way to the semi-final, where we came up against Plymouth and they actually took the lead against us after 11 minutes. And even though we did not look great during the game, we kept pushing, and in the second half we managed to create an opportunity on the left hand side which was actually put away, so we got a little bit lucky there. But thankfully, as the minutes closed away, El Amari got forward, found Bacharina, who drove into the area and tucked it past Hazard to get us the win and send us to the final. So could Fulham, who have always been the runners-up, finally win a major trophy? Well, we were up against Spurs, who also struggled for trophies recently, and Bacharina put us in front after 9 minutes, before Spurs managed to hit back just before half-time, with Sarr scoring a good free-kick routine. In the second half, I thought we might have just won the game when Marmoush brought it down in the area, drove towards goal and scored a brilliant finish. But in the 77th minute, Almada hit another good set piece to send us to extra time. Before Spurs broke our hearts even further, Maddison finding Almada, the ball floated around and it got tucked away by Zivkovic. So unfortunately, we had lost in another cup final. The FA Cup was not coming home to Fulham, which is a huge disappointment. But of course, this season we were in the Europa League and we made it to the semi-final yet again. And it looked to be a tough draw at first, coming up against Sporting Club de Portugal away from home. But after only 4 minutes, Jarrod Bowen managed to score a goal, which was part of a hat-trick to help us beat them 6-1. And with that, we were heading to a Europa League final, a place where Fulham had been before and lost to Atletico Madrid. This year we might have hoped for a slightly easier match, but we were up against another European elite side in Juventus. And it was a tough battle. In fact, our goalkeeper Cornesci got man of the match, the Italian, which tells you just how tough of a game it was. But Bacharina scored a wonder goal after 26 minutes, and that was the only goal in the game, a brilliant finish that helped us secure our first piece of silverware in the rebuild and Fulham's first European trophy. So that was a huge positive, but the reason that I said negative, positive, negative was the league was awful this year for us. I mean, I say awful, it's good for Fulham, 9th place, but compared to where we've been, it's a big disappointment in terms of points total. I mean, Everton in 12th place, only 3 points behind us, shows just how far we could have fell. I mean, Wolves, Sheffield United and Brighton all struggled, but yes, 9th place finish for us, but we're going to play Champions League football anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. And I don't want to take too much credit for what we've done here at Fulham, but as you can see, pretty much every top performing player we brought in. I mean, Smith Rowe is one of the few that's still here that's doing really well. I mean, Zaragoza doing great, Guana Dwarf scoring 14, Bacharina with 12 in his first season, Kramashi as well, the American, developing into a really good midfielder. So I'm absolutely delighted with the way this is going so far for Fulham. We might need a new striker because Solanke wasn't scoring that many goals, but the facilities are doing quite well. Transfers wise, we got 62 million, so we could easily find some competition for him. But now we're going to head into our 5th and final transfer window, trying to improve this team even more, and maybe, just maybe, we've won a Europa League, why not a Champions League? And even though it's our 5th and final season, we did not slow up in the transfer front. Lots of moves in and out, but before I show you them, the last time I can ask you to like the video if you have enjoyed it. It really does help, but let's see those transfers. Omar Marmoush left at the end of his deal, age 29. He didn't want to renew with us, so now he's gone to play in Egypt, his home country, for Al Ahly. Andreas Pereira has moved on to join Bologna, age 32. He's been at Fulham for a number of years, but leaves for 6 million. Joachim Andersen, another servant that leaves after a long time, age 32. He's gone to play at Al Ittihad City fact to run out his career in Saudi Arabia for 10 mil. And then Hartman has also left. The left back has gone to join Leeds. They are now in the Premier League and they have signed him for £26 million, which is an increase on what we originally paid, so we make a profit on him. Coming in, an extra option in the defence is Sebastian Vargas, age 31. We've picked him up on a free, and I think he's just going to be a nice little option to have as a fourth choice centre-back option. Another new gen that could go right to the top, labelled as a wonderkid, George Regis is an Argentinian international, age 19, who comes in as our backup left back now. He is signed for £11 million from Independiente, and I think could go right to another level. So anyone that continues on Patreon, let me know how good he does. We then brought in Kenan Yildiz, the 23-year-old Turkishman who scored 7 goals in 11 Turkey appearances in this rebuild. We beat Juve in the Europa League final and clearly wanted to jump ship. 35 million rising to 40. He is a new Fulham player. And I said I wanted more goals. He's not necessarily a Solanke replacement, but an extra option. João Pedro has joined us. Brighton got relegated and therefore we got him at what I would say is a cut price deal of 33.5 million. I mean, Brighton make a profit on a player that scored quite a few goals for them, but I think he's still a great deal, a great price at 33 mil. For Brazilian international, I cannot complain. And here is our final best 11 in a side that I believe any Fulham fan would love to go watch week in, week out. It's Carnegie in goal with Santos, Goes, Silla and Robinson at the back, but there's so many great young players as well ready to fill in those positions. Batterin and Guana Dwarf fill in the midfield alongside Bowen, Smith Rowe, Zaragoza and Pedro. An exciting electric attack that's going to score a lot of goals, and fingers crossed the game now predicts us to do better than before. I think it was 9th place last year. This time it's 8th, 50 to 1 title odds, so there's a slight chance we could do it. I'll be honest, as this rebuild has gone on, my focus has shifted away from winning that Premier League and closer to winning the domestic cup, because it hasn't quite gone so well. But we are playing UCL football this year, so who knows, maybe in season 5 we can deliver one more bit of silverware. And always when I do these rebuilds in the last season, you want some drama, you want something to happen, and we were not left disappointed with Fulham here. It was our first year in the Champions League, and we did really well in the league phase. In fact, we actually qualified as one of the top 8 teams, which sent us to the round of 16, but one of the highlights of the league phase was beating Bayern Munich 5-3 at the Allianz Arena. So into the knockouts we went to the round of 16, where we were put up against probably the hardest match we could have wanted, Real Madrid, where Mbappe showed his quality after 33 minutes at Craven Cottage. Now, we did not win this game, but it might be one of the best results in Fulham history because Kenan Yildiz found Thiago Santos, who drilled it into the corner to earn us a draw against Real Madrid. We then went to the Bernabeu and gave a good effort, eventually losing 3-1 on the night, so losing the tie 4-2, which I think is pretty respectable. So we were out of one cup competition, but this year we were once again in an FA Cup semi-final. Now, outside of that Europa League win, we have been the nearly team for this whole rebuild, and it looked like we would be again when Chelsea took the lead. That was after 13 minutes, but we did manage to grow in the game, and just before the 30-minute mark, João Pedro scored an equaliser. The game then headed to extra time, and it was there where we managed to find a winner, Jared Bowen scoring against a London club to send us to the final. So once again, we had a crack at an FA Cup, a competition that we've been doing pretty well in this rebuild, but never winning. We have lost the final before against Spurs. This time it's against another London club. We were playing Arsenal. It was the last game of our season and the last game of this rebuild, and maybe the players knew it was my last match as manager, because after 3 minutes they got us in the lead through João Pedro, and I was happy to take that into half time, but even happier when we created a chance just before the whistle blew, Smith Rowe against his former club making it 2. And we controlled the game from there. Arsenal huffed and puffed, but they could not get a goal, but then we managed to add a third, Jared Bowen, a former West Ham player, scoring against Arsenal to put us 3-0 up. Arsenal, of course, are a team with quality though, and I believe they've been winning league titles in this rebuild, and Jesus showed that quality, making it 3-1, but that was all he could do. That was the only goal Arsenal scored. We had won the FA Cup finally 3-1. The Fulham club that before had a Europa League runners-up medal and an FA Cup runners-up medal now had both trophies to go with it after our time as manager. Again, lots of great performers, a lot of familiar names, but the highlight this year was João Pedro coming in and scoring 36 goals, really taking this club by the scruff of the neck and dragging us to silverware. The club as a whole is doing really well now. Facilities are looking great. Financially, we have got £53 million, nothing in the debts and loans, and plenty of great talents coming through in the development centre also. We've increased the team's youth facilities, so we should be seeing lots of good talents come through. But there we go. That is the end of our Fulham rebuild. 2 trophies won, 2 big trophies won as well. We have finally helped Fulham, one of the oldest clubs in England, win the FA Cup and the Europa League. Let me know who you want to see next, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.